Okay, Catherine. There you go. Then we'll be all set in a minute. So, hey, Joan. Hey, Catherine.
Hi, hello.
Okay, so we're all set. So, okay.
Just don't forget the YouTube.
Yeah, I just did that
Oh,
today. I
yeah,
remembered.
you remembered it. Yeah, yeah, good, good. How are you, Thomas?
I'm okay.
Yeah,
I'm okay. And you?
yeah, good, thank you. Yeah, we've had the most amazing weather here. Yeah,
Nice.
October, day after day of sunny weather, which when
Yeah.
you live in the UK is something to be celebrated.
Yeah.
Mm,
Yeah,
yeah.
we're expecting rain on Saturday.
Mm,
Excited about that.
yeah, you'd be excited, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good. People coming in. How is everybody? Did anybody get to do the day 3 lesson yet? You can put it in the chat if you managed to find the time to fit that one in. I think if a few people commented in the group that there were some of the movements were quite tricky.
Mm.
Yeah, so we kind of built in difficulty. The first day was quite easy. The second day, someone Doro found it easy. Well, there you go.
Good.
There you go. Someone else has just done it. Yeah, some people found it tricky, the rolling tricky. Some people obviously found it easy. That's great.
Mm.
It's good either way. When you find it tricky,
Mm.
then you get to be a movement detective. Find
Mhm.
out how you're blocking yourself. Mm.
Mhm. Yeah, let's see,
Good,
Joe found it
good,
easy
good.
too. Good.
Yeah, easy, easy. Perfect. Yeah, yeah. The floor is your friend, we always say in Feldenkrais. Mm.
True.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's right. Carol saying that it feels good, and she felt much more flexible afterwards.
Mm.
And that's the thing, isn't it? Is that you can do exercises that are good for you, but do you feel better afterwards? That's the real key. Do you feel better?
Yeah.
Do you feel like you can move in more directions more easily than you did at the start? That kind of thing. Good. Well,
Yeah.
we'll get started.
Yeah.
So I'll introduce it, Thomas, and then we can
Yes.
just go from there.
Okay.
Good.
Yes.
So welcome everybody. It's day 3 of the Feldenkrais for Riders Challenge, and tonight's topic is coordination and body awareness. And actually, when we came up with that title of coordination and body awareness, what came to me is that Feldenkrais is really about awareness, full stop. It's not about body awareness. It's about awareness as a human being, which is a little bit different. You might know where you are in space, and you might know where all the different parts of you in relation to you, and that's a certain type of awareness. That's a body awareness. But we're talking more about the type of awareness that people train through meditation, through many years of practice in martial arts. And I think the really great riders have more than just body awareness. They have an awareness of themselves in relationship to space, awareness of the whole, if you like,
Mhm.
of their environment. Sometimes I think of it, awareness is like having bigger and bigger rings which go out and out and out, maybe even into the universe, if you like, if you're that way inclined. So I thought that would be an interesting topic for tonight. And also to do another short lesson within the session itself. And I think we might just get right into that, Thomas, because you look a
Yes.
little tired, and it might refresh you. You never
Yeah.
know. It might take you either way. You might just crash, and then in which case everybody here, we can just talk and Thomas can have a little sleep. But it might just refresh you. So should we do that, everybody? We'll just
Yeah.
get right into a short session for this last day. So once again, because we're all um, no doubt looking at phones or laptops or whatever, we'll do it seated. However, in the Feldenkrais courses, we do lots and lots lying down as well. So it's not you only ever do Feldenkrais lessons on a chair. That's not the case. But it works well for the format that we have for these 3 lives together. So for those of you who've been here the last couple of days, you know the drill. You need to find a chair that has a fairly firm seat, where preferably your hip joints are a little bit higher than your knees or about the same level. If you don't have that, you can actually do this lesson on the floor, sitting cross-legged, and make it work for you. So that would also be fine. And once you found your chair and you've got a sense of the contact of your sitting bones on the chair, and find a place for your 2 feet that feels comfortable and supportive, where you can sense that your feet give you some stability. And that's often dependent on the whole of the foot being in contact with the floor. The heel, the forefoot, the base of the toes, and even the pads of the toes. So that if you were on a soft surface, like wet sand, you would make a print with your feet that you would leave behind you, and people would know you'd been there. And if you imagine your feet making prints in wet sand or clay, notice whether one footprint is deeper than the other in your sensation. It may be just an impression, and it may really be true. And do you make a different sitting bone print? If your feet are different, are your sitting bone prints also different? Would one sitting bone sink a little bit more deeply into the surface you're sitting on? One be a little bit more sketchy and light? We're going to start with lifting the right sitting bone. But if that's uncomfortable for you, you can switch the directions to the other side. So just like we've done the last few days, lift your right sitting bone a little bit, and that will rock you a little bit more onto your left sitting bone. And then come back to the middle. Do that several times and feel, how does the rest of you respond? Someone asked the question in the group today, oh, when I'm lifting my sitting bone, I try to keep everything else still and independent. And you can do that, but that will make it more difficult. So what else do you need to adjust in order to lift your right sitting bone? Maybe you feel your ribs open up a little bit on one side. Maybe you feel your sternum, your breastbone sliding across a little bit. You might even feel your head moves a little bit through space because you're taking the whole of yourself over your left sitting bone. And the whole of yourself is your pelvis, your spine, your ribs, your shoulders, your head and your neck, and your awareness. You take your awareness over your left sitting bone. And then pause back in the middle. We often talk about the middle being the subjective middle because nobody truly sits absolutely in the middle. But what feels like middle to you? And then go a few times in the other direction. So we're sort of testing it out. It's like a little reference movement that we can come back to at the end and find out whether this lesson worked for you, whether it made you feel better or worse. And how do you organize your ribs and your chest? How easily does your pelvis pick up on this left side so that you can bring the weight of your whole self over your right sitting bone? Are there any parts of you that you leave behind if you wanted to bring all of yourself over your right sitting bone? Do you notice whether some parts of you get stuck to the left? And then come back to the middle and rest and, maybe just slouch, just sit back into your chair and have a brief break so that you can give your attention a rest. Yeah. I'll clap my fingers, Thomas, if I see your eyes closing. So that's one way of organizing your pelvis to move. You know, it's a side bending movement, a shifting of weight right and left. But let's explore another way of moving. So when you're ready, come back to the front edge of your chair so your thighs are free of your chair. It makes your pelvis more mobile if your thighs aren't on touching the chair. And now bring the palms of your hands onto your cheekbones with the fingers directed up. So you'll be covering your eyes with your hands. The fingertips are pointing upwards and the heels of your hands are just below your cheekbones. And like this, start to lift your elbows a little bit up into the air, but not out to the sides, but straight forward and up, as if you were taking them up towards the ceiling. Great. And now you can do this, you can do quite a lot of movement in your neck, but I'm going to invite you to actually think that as your elbows come forward and up, that you actually lift your chest a little bit, as if your chest wanted to see the ceiling. And then come back to the middle and take your elbows a little bit down as if your chest wanted to see the floor. So you're going to start to round and arch your whole back, your whole spine. Great. And then take your elbows up as if you were drawing lines on the wall in front of you with your elbows. And you're carrying your head with your elbows and your chest lifts up and maybe you feel like your pelvis starts to roll a little bit forward. So you get some extension through the whole of your back. And then in the other direction, you can round and slouch and roll a little bit behind your sitting bones and let your whole back round. And how do you breathe as you do this movement? Do you breathe in a certain direction and out in another direction? Do you hold your breath? If you hold your breath, does that help you? Or does it hinder you? Great. And then leave that and let your arms rest and your self rest somewhere at the front of the chair. And shift your weight a little bit to the left and a little bit to the right. Go back to the first movement and feel, has anything changed? You know, many of these sorts of lessons where we're playing with movements of the spine and the chest and the head and the neck, they actually help with the spine, kind of restoring the spine to its full length, its natural alignment. And then all the movement directions get easier. Okay, one more direction. Lift your right sitting bone a little bit away from the chair. So you're a little bit over your left sitting bone. And now move your right knee forward so that you start to rotate your whole body. We did a little bit of this yesterday. And just take your knee a little bit forward and a little bit back with the sitting bone, the right sitting bone, a little bit in the air. So you're turning your whole pelvis and the whole of your right side around your left hip joint. And this is a movement of turning as if you wanted to look around to the left. How do you organize your eyes? Do your eyes just kind of get carried by your head? What happens if you track with your eyes around to the left as you take your right knee forward? And then track your eyes back to the middle as you return to the middle. And then leave that and come back to the middle. Pause and rest. And then see, how is it to lift your left sitting bone so that you get a little bit more weight on your right sitting bone. A few times take your left knee a little bit forward and back in space so that you're turning your whole self around your right hip joint. And you can go as far as is easy and effortless. But if you start to kind of push into some muscular tension, then you won't get so much benefit from it. So keep the ease. The left sitting bone is a little bit light so that it's easy to slide it back and forth, to glide it back and forth. Your left knee moves forward as you turn. And then one more thing, turn to the left. So your left knee comes forward and stay there. So you're going to stay turned, sorry, to the right. Stay turned to the right with the left knee coming forward. Bring your hands over your eyes again, like this. So you're turned to the right, your elbows are in front, and do few movements where you lift your elbows and arch your whole back. And then you lower your elbows and you round your whole back, all the time staying turned to the right. Yes, your foot needs to stay on the ground if you can. Yeah, that's a question in the chat. So how is it to arch and round your back in this rotated position? Can you still breathe? Does it help to breathe in perhaps as you lift your elbows and to breathe out as you round and fold yourself? And then leave that, come back to the middle. And very simply lift your right sitting bone, lift your left sitting bone, and see how that is now. Great. And you can take your time to come back to the chat. How are you feeling now, Thomas?
Good, good.
Good.
Evened out.
Yeah, evened out.
pelvis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah. It's interesting.
Yeah. I mean, we did, in a sense, we covered 3 planes of movement in quite a short time. So normally I would expand a lesson like that to take more time to build into it. But I thought it was nice to have, to have a lot of variations within a short session, so you get a feeling for where you can get to in a relatively short period of time if you pay attention to how you're moving and to, yeah. And I think people are starting to comment a little bit.
Yeah, Jerry says rounding down a bit harder, rounding up feels great. Jane says, yeah.
Relaxed, yeah. Maybe this is gonna be the sleepy night. Jerry, is it common for it to take slightly more effort lifting the hip on your heavy side? Yes, it is. And of course, the temptation is to work harder to get your hip to lift. But often it's about working smarter and finding where above or below are you not utilizing to help you lift that hip. And it kind of, Jerry, it slightly ties into what Doro said about, does one foot need to stay on the ground? Well, yes, because your foot can be a support to help you lift that hip. So if you take away your foot, you're taking away one of your places that's useful for you to lift. Yeah. The riding questions are coming in.
Yeah, it's the same motion as turning on the elusive 20-meter circle. No, not necessarily. I mean, if you push one knee forward, you can create a rotation of your pelvis.
Yeah.
It's not the only way, though. You can do it.
No, it's not the only way, because you can organize it from your pelvis, which will move your knee forward. Or you can think of your knees into your thighs, which will move your pelvis. And it'll have a different feeling to you, and I think a different feeling to your horse.
Yeah.
But you don't always have to think about the forward as well. You can think of if you want one side of your pelvis to move forward, you can think of organizing it by taking the other side backwards. And that can make a big difference as well. So if you always do the same movements the same way, I think it's, in some ways, the horse can easily tune you out, and you can tune out to yourself.
Yeah. When at the end there, with one seat bone lifted and then the one knee forward, I had this mental image of doing transitions in a shoulder in, like trot halt or walk halt transitions. That was kind of hard. It's not exactly the same, but it has an element of that. Maybe it's the rounding,
The rounding, yeah.
you know, lifting one hip and pushing one knee forward and then rounding it. Because the horses often get very round and lift their back and their withers when you do these transitions in the shoulder, in keeping the same angle, and then doing walk, halt, walk, trot, trot, halt transition.
That's really interesting. And of course, you need to have the skill in your own body, don't you, to be able to maintain not only a little bit of rotation to keep them in the shoulder in, but also to have that flexibility.
Right.
And it's not like you're doing a massive movement, isn't it?
Right,
It's
right.
more like just like a little losing of air to come down and a lifting of air to come up.
Yeah. Yeah, it was interesting. It was a little unexpected, but you know, if you stop in the shoulder in, you have to keep the same angle, you have to keep the same bend, and then with the up transition, the horse has to round more in a sense and do the up transition with a lifting of the back and the withers, and you have to allow that in your seat, and you know, so I don't know, just it's interesting.
And so, do you think when you make space for the horse's back to come up underneath you in the up transition, do you think you do something like there's a little bit of extension in your spine when you do that?
To lighten myself, I like to let my pelvis come up, and to do that, I push my knees down a little bit, and of course the outside knee would be a little bit ahead of the inside knee to keep the shoulder in position. And I mean, since I tend to slouch, I always have to extend
to
a little
lift a bit.
you know,
Yeah, exactly.
And, so yeah,
And the knees going forward and down will actually help that.
Yeah.
That's an interesting for everybody. If you that movement of Tom was talking about, we've done one knee coming forward, but if you think both knees forward and down in the saddle, that will actually help you get a little bit long in your front and a little bit more engaged through the musculature in the back of you. And I've noticed Thomas often talks about that as a kind of cue for an up transition, because he says that the pelvis will come up a little bit and then the horse's back will come up. And I think when you I was just going to say, Thomas, when you did that sitting trot video on YouTube, you really showed that. And you talked everybody through,
Yeah, exactly. So how to make yourself light so the horse's back can come up, right? So you have to create a little space under your seat, and so it's important that the pelvis is very flexible and in this vertical direction, swinging up and down. If people sit like a brick, you know, then the horse's back just drops, and then they will never be able to go on the bit or through the back. So you always have to create a little space for them. But also it's dynamic, right? Sometimes you have to press a hind leg into the ground, but then you have to allow the back to come up afterwards. So it's a going up and down a lot, basically, you know.
Yeah, and when you say that the pelvis is stiff, just for everybody, that generally means that the pelvis isn't moving freely, the hip joints aren't moving freely around the thigh bones. So it's the hip joints which are stiff, which causes that pelvic feeling, the feeling that the pelvis is stiff.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Let's see, there were a bunch of comments and questions to find where we okay. Marie Klimchuk says, I found the opposite harder to round up. Terry says, I found that when I effort the movement, I tensed, and after letting go and bringing my awareness to the whole, there was more ease and suppleness.
It's so difficult to do less and then know that there's even less and even less and even less. There's always less that you can do, and when you find that kind of attitude, if you like, of not pushing for things, you'll be amazed, as Terry says, you'll be amazed how much the ease and the suppleness emerges. And the coordination, you know, tonight's topic is coordination. And I did a little bit of a, patting your head and tummy rubbing because you were twisted and looking up and down. And, there was a whole lot of stuff going on.
Yeah. And of course, in riding, you need a lot of that, these complex movements where you do things at once.
Yeah, you really do. And I was thinking about that on my ride today, that there was a combination, and I was hacking or on the trail, and I wanted to do a little bit of shoulder in on one side, a little bit of shoulder in on the other side, and I needed my pelvis to be really free to rotate. And I was trying what you were saying about up transitions, and you're right. The first ones I was squashing his back because I was too focused on just the rotation. Then I had to find that kind of lift. So there's a lot going on at once, and it was really fun. It was really, really fun to use my body in this way and to apply Thomas's principles. And, you know, of course, when you're out hacking, your horse is really motivated and forward. And so you don't have to worry about that. You don't have to, you don't have to kick them. Sorry, I'm just joking.
Right. Yeah, that's the thing. If the horse is lethargic and doesn't have enough energy and you make yourself light, the back stays down, it stays flat. So sometimes you have to create a little bit more energy and a little bit more movement. And then when you swing up the horse's back, it's lifted by the hind legs. But there has to be a certain amount of energy present. Yeah, otherwise it doesn't work.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. No.
Yeah, so that's why on trails it can be a good place because the horses typically like to go forward on trails.
Yes, they do. Exactly. And there's no difficulty in getting the up transitions. Sometimes the down transitions are a little bit problematic.
That's what walls are for.
Yeah, true. Very true. Yeah.
No, don't
we got to... No, try not to. A hedge in our case.
Yeah, there you go. Yes, I'm not having to press into my foot as much to lift today. Love the up and down, love putting the pieces together. Definitely ready for now.
Looks like a few people are going to be napping. Yeah, exactly. Because as you understand how to use all the vertebrae in your spine, which we kind of creeping into with the other lessons in the platform, the video lessons, and these ones, you've got 24 vertebrae, and some of them are great at flexing, extending, and some, like your thoracic vertebra, are all about rotation. And if you can find all the possible movements in all 24 vertebrae, you won't need to work too hard by pressing your foot. You'll feel light. I think that's what self-carriage feels like, isn't it? Self-carriage in us, you feel light and you feel mobile and you feel like you've got choices.
Yep.
And you're poised and ready rather than you have to do something to get yourself going.
Right. That's true. That's true. It's often the case that it feels effortless once you found self-carriage. The horse also, when the horse finds self-carriage, then it's like a perpetual mobile where you don't have to drive. They just keep going. Like they re-energize themselves.
Yes. Yes.
It's same on the long rein. Once the horse has found a groove and a certain rhythm and balance and so on, then he just takes you. And then long reining is not physically strenuous anymore. It's not difficult anymore. But before that, when it can be a little tedious sometimes, not quite in sync yet with each other, and then it's much more effort. And once the horse goes, I don't know, you're in sync with each other. It's hard to describe, but it becomes easy. It's almost like there's a strong wind from behind that just pushes you, So
yeah. I mean, that kind of feeling when you're moving through treacle. That's
exactly.
It's and then when if that kind of the treacle sort of melts or gets runny, then it becomes a completely different experience.
Right, exactly. So Jamie says, I like the one of pushing the femur in the socket to rotate pelvis.
Okay, so that is from Feldenkrais, which is the short workshop we taught last week. And I introduced the idea of using, if you imagine that this is the pelvis and you're using the femur to push the pelvis back rather than moving the other side forward. So you had, just as I mentioned earlier, just these different ways of coming at the same movement. Funnily enough, actually, I wanted to mention that, Thomas, that the pushing the femur in the socket, in walk, you can time it with the horse's shoulder coming back.
Right,
But if you imagine, like my horse's, his right shoulder kind of comes back and in too much, but he finds it harder to extend, and the left shoulder is always out and reaching forward. And so what I was imagining, it was that my thighs were attached to his shoulders. And so I could draw the left shoulder back and in, which freed up the right front leg to come forward. So it was really cool. I kind of attached my skeleton to his skeleton.
Yeah, that's nice.
And it really, really helped him free up his shoulders. Yeah. Because no doubt I was blocking him to a certain extent as well through my own pattern. Yeah.
And Maria says this challenge, maybe in combination with the Felden series, has made the weight on my seat bones feel a lot more equal. My habitual position would otherwise always be to sit more heavily on the left one.
That's good. Yeah, great. That is cool.
Very good. And Ingela says, had a drop foot after my stroke 5 years ago.
Yeah.
these exercises are making real difference to my sensation too when I focus. Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, that's it's amazing, isn't it, how you can even when you've had some damage, neurological damage, you can still improve your proprioception when you learn how to pay attention a very specific way and to bring more parts of you into your attention. Then you remap your brain, essentially, which is what you need to do when you've had a stroke. You need to remap your brain.
Caro says, once again, interesting how quickly the body adjusts to make the movement easier.
Yeah. Yes, that's your brain at work. Yeah. Your brain is working well.
Yeah.
Brain and the nervous system seeks optimal movement. And when you feel optimal movement, your brain recognizes it. Sorry, you were saying.
Yeah, Gretchen says this exercise releases emotions too. How cool. That's interesting, isn't it? Yeah,
I often find that, and particularly once you start, moving into the chest and, where your lungs are. And, obviously one of the ways we stop emotional expression is by clamping down with our chests. And one of the ways we release it is by letting that kind of full force of our breath come out. So it can be, when you start working with the chest, a lot can change in that respect. It's nice.
And Terry here on Q&A is saying, doing day 2 lesson, found the muscles in my butt very hard when moving over the area. It went bump, bump, bump. Going slowly over that area helped to find more softness. As I'm getting older, I'm finding my muscles are harder, and grateful to feel Feldenkrais help. Not so much a question, much more observation.
Yeah, I think that's a very common thing, isn't it, Terry, that as people get older, it feels like the muscles get harder and they lose. I mean, we know you lose collagen, so your muscles literally do get a little bit more, I don't know, stringy feeling. But I think you can keep more of the softness through this type of work. Hey, you want your muscles to feel sort of lubricated, don't you? Yeah, plump.
Jane says, so when they get too forward, how do you dampen it on a trail?
Oh, I don't know. You tell me.
Well, the trick is to not let it get away from you too much. Don't wait too long before you do something, right? So keep the horse on the aids, and when you feel them losing balance and getting faster, then rebalance. You can do it stirrup stepping and half halts and so on. Don't wait until it's too late.
And actually the stirrup stepping has been really helpful for me. And for those who don't know Thomas's work, the stirrup stepping is a light touch of weight as different legs touch down. And I have found that very helpful. My big mistake is when my horse gets excited, I get excited too. So
as long as you're on the same page, it's okay.
Yeah, we are. We like it. Yeah.
Go for a gallop. And then
exactly. Yeah, I like that.
You have a long enough road with good footing, then it's okay.
Yeah.
So Nicole says, right sitting bone is way more painful than the left one. It feels sharp and edgy, whereas the other one feels rounded and softer.
Yeah. And is your left sitting bone your more supportive sitting bone? That would be interesting to know whether you put more weight naturally on your left one, because you may be feeling that what you're feeling around the right is muscular contraction and tension. All that complicated musculature around the hip joints tends to get a bit stringy feeling and inflamed. Martina likes the chest coming higher. I think lots of people like that.
Yeah, and Jane says that's really good to ride this. And Martina says, gives a place for the movement. It's about the seat. Jerry says, love Dr. Ritter's explanation stuff no one has ever told me. Thank you.
Yeah, that's why we're all here.
I know a lot of it nobody told me either. I had to figure it out. That's why it took so long. So, but it's good. It's good if it's useful information. I'm glad. Jamie says, I think I have been trying to keep my upper body too still. That's common, because we're taught to sit still, right?
Yes.
And then we get rigid.
We did a kind of analysis of one of Carl Hester's rides, didn't we? Do you remember, in Ritterize? And one of the things that we saw is he looks completely still, but there's always a sort of tiny micro movement happening in his ribs, and that's what gives him such finesse when he's riding. He doesn't clamp down. I'm not a fan of kind of rigidifying your chest and getting yourself into a set position, because it does actually limit the movements of your spine and your pelvis. And it's not that you want everything to move around wildly, but it must feel like everything is moving within a very quiet micro range, and that you can move when you need to. Clamping down, you have to let go of something to be able to move. And what's the point of that?
Yeah. Terry wants to know what's treacle.
What do you call it in America? Molasses, golden syrup. I don't know.
Yeah,
it's like sugar. It's basically solid sugar made into a syrup. Sugar syrup. Yeah.
So Alia says also something you said about just placing your shoulders over your ribs solved a long contemplated dilemma for me so much easier.
Brilliant. Yeah. Isn't it funny? Crazy. Yeah.
Susan says, I'm from Spain. Wow, that exercise was fantastic. I have anti-rollethesis in lumbar 4 and 5 and always stiff asking for a right lead. I found this too at the beginning of this exercise, but amazingly enough, after doing the exercise, I was equal in both seat bones and with more freedom in my spine. Thank you. I've taken notes to remember them all.
Brilliant. Good. Yeah. That sounds like that would be a really nice one for you to do before you get on, Susan.
And Nicole says, yes, more weight on the left.
Yes, so that's really common. If you think of it this way, your supportive side will often feel very stable and secure, but not as mobile. Because while it's busy supporting your weight, it frees up the other side to do clever and intelligent things and agile things. And then what you often get is quite a lot of contraction in the clever, agile side and a feeling of solidity in the supportive side. And what the challenge is to be able to swap that over so you're able to support yourself more with your agile side and be more agile with your supportive side, if that makes sense. So, yeah.
And Harriet says, interesting on the emotional aspect after last night's session, and I'm doing a couple of other of your courses as well simultaneously. My chest had so much energy building and I wanted to yell it out. It feels like lots of feelings are subtly arising and resolving. That's interesting.
Yeah. Cool. I know that feeling, and I know that feeling of holding that down as well, and how much energy it takes in your throat, your tongue, because literally you'll kind of squeeze your tongue back towards the back of your mouth in order not to say what you need to say or yell out what you need to yell out. Yeah.
Maria
Molasses.
says,
molasses. Yeah. Okay.
And Maria was saying, so if you're right-handed, is it usually the right side that is more agile?
Yes. Unless you've had lots of injuries, in which case you'll find both sides feel a bit like they're not quite sure what to do. Yeah, but generally, yes. And
Jamie says, I'm trying to get stirrup stepping. Even tiny move can feel in all the way up my leg to my femur. I can't seem to isolate just foot making a move. Just relax, and maybe focus a little bit on the horse's body making a downward movement, because there's always a slight wave-like motion going up and down as the one hind leg pushes, the body goes up a little and forward, and then of course it lands again. You can focus on the landing of a front leg or a hind leg and then just join the downward movement and just maybe curl your toes a little bit. Sometimes it's enough to just try and sense the bottom of your foot that's in touch with the stirrup. I mean, so without actually putting weight in it, sometimes just feeling that more, the tread of the stirrup iron, or visualizing it can be enough if you have a super sensitive horse. And with other horses, yeah, you can put a little pressure on, but most people do way too much. I mean, sometimes you see the whole rider then kind of sway over, and that's overkill. That's way too much. Like, it should be a completely invisible aid. So it's very subtle. It's why horses usually like it, because it's no pressure coming from the outside. It's more like a modification of the movement from the inside out. Like, you join the movement, and then with the stirrup pressure, you can keep a leg on the ground a little bit longer. It's really interesting, and you don't need the rein, or you don't need as much rein. And if you add a little bit of rein pressure to the stirrup, the horses accept the rein a lot better. Whereas if the horse is in a hurry and then you try to half halt, then they often drop the back and get tight and they shorten the neck, or they go above the bit. But if you do a stirrup pressure, you know, and then a little bit of rein in addition, they usually accept that a lot better and they stay around her. So,
yeah, and I mean, Thomas, you were using your hand really eloquently there, and I could imagine your foot, but
yeah.
you know, if you could just use your toes, couldn't you? Like
right,
that.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's usually it's a movement of the toes, or the ankle could
or the ankle
participate, but that's as far as it goes. And above the ankle, you don't do anything. You just let it hang. Otherwise, it's way too much. If you stomp with your whole leg, that's way too much. And the horses can stop and get behind the aids if you do too much of it. You know, so it's I mean, I compare it often to hauling your horse with a truck and trailer, and then if you have to brake and slow down, you know, you're a little careful when you have a horse in the trailer, right? You don't stomp on it with your whole weight, you know. And it's the same with a stirrup stepping. Like you step a little bit, put a little pressure onto the stirrup and see if anything happens, you know, and then you release and maybe do it again the next stride. And so just like with a you know, braking with your truck and trailer, start light and then increase the pressure if you feel like I need to slow down more, you know, but also don't forget to let go and do it again, you know. So
and I think what I found really interesting when I started, you know, playing around with the stirrup stepping was that it's natural. Once you feel the horse's forelegs grounding, it's natural to actually add a little bit of weight if you want to, if you choose to. But you have to feel the timing, don't you? Until you feel the timing, it can be tricky to find the moment. Once you feel the timing, it's so obvious. You know, it's like, oh, there it goes. I can touch and touch and
you just let your own weight kind of flow through a certain leg of the horse into the ground. You know, it's like you send your weight through that leg into the ground, and then the horse uses the ground a little bit more like a trampoline. Yeah, because then they step down a little bit more and then they push off a little bit more too, but in a more vertical direction. So the strides can become more expressive, but also taller, a little shorter, so they don't run so much, right? If the horse is in a hurry, then it's more like a, I don't know, track and field athlete on a track, you know, running, you know, that kind of feeling. Then it's tick, 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 hard and fast, you know. And with stirrup stepping, you can make the motion a little bit slower and softer, bouncier, like on a trampoline.
Yeah. And actually, that's interesting, isn't it? Because if you imagine Thomas's example of a human on the track, when you see the very best athletes, it's almost like there's so much propulsion coming from each of their steps, so to speak. Each time they weight a foot, there's this terrific buildup of energy. And I think what I've seen with you is that you can do that through your stirrup stepping with the horse. You can create this tremendous amount of propulsion because your timing is so good.
Yeah, you can if you send your energy, your weight into the ground, and it's like compressing a spring, and then as you release it, it bounces back a little bit more, and so you can create more impulsion that way, and you can create a bigger bounce back. You know, so that's why the gates become bigger and more expressive if you do it.
Yeah, and I'm you know, when you add that little bit of like sinking just at the right time, of course the other leg flies up,
right,
so to speak. And that's the same for us. You know, if you can find the timing of like how to sink and release on the supporting leg, the other leg will get really free to move through space, which is why some people are great at running.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And see here. Joan Cable was saying, yes, that's all I do. Just move my foot in my boot, like you suggested. Good. Jamie says that helps very sensitive horse, so has acted more puzzled or ignores it. Yeah, with a very sensitive horse, sometimes really just thinking about it or visualizing it can be enough. And they already respond to that.
Yeah. And I think it's an interesting comment, Jamie, because, you know, in a sense, what you're getting into is that it as we talked about at the beginning, is so much more than your own body awareness to be a good rider. It's, you know, taking into account your emotional state, your psychological state, how that impacts how you move, how your move impacts your psychological state and your thinking. And then you've got your horse, and every horse has a different character and different needs and different wants. And how can you hold all these things in your awareness and know what to prioritize. Because you can't prioritize everything. You have to make decisions, like Thomas has talked very eloquently about, if you wanted to bring your horse's energy down, then in that moment you feel the energy is up and then you just do these little stirrup steps. That's having a good awareness of what your horse and you need in the moment. And that's what makes it, I think, such a fascinating process of learning, both about yourself and about this lovely creature who lets you sit on their back and move together.
Yes. Let me see. The Q&A was just Jane was saying, I will try going out to a new venue on Monday. We'll have a go. Good. With a slowing down, probably.
Yes, try the slowing down. Yeah. And I think something which I picked up there, Jane, which really stuck with me was that the tiny stirrup step with a little bit of a half halt on one rein is often enough to keep the horse round and not lift up. And I thought, oh yeah, okay, that's really interesting. And I'm really going to take that from tonight's session. So thanks. Yeah.
And Susan says the stirrup stepping course is just fantastic. There is enough information, demonstration in it to last your lifetime. Long walk to short walk and rising the body and lifting higher works like a dream. Cool. That's very good.
Great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you do a whole course on stirrup stepping?
We have like a self-study mini course.
Oh, the self-study, do you? Yeah.
So it has explanations and
it's a mini course.
Basic exercises, introductory.
Oh, that's cool.
With examples and stuff.
Yeah. So this, I mean, in a way, we've got these courses like stirrup stepping. We've got these short courses, and we've got the bigger courses, the bigger riding courses, and we've got the Feldenkrais courses. So if you want to do more of that, those are
No, just gotta say you should talk a little bit about that.
Yeah,
I have to leave again in
yes, no, we're gonna wrap up at 7. So yes, what we're planning in starting on the 1st of November is a 30-day Feldenfit challenge, and Feldenfit is my Feldenkrais course, which I made specifically for riders, and it's 5 to 15 minutes of short lessons, much like you did in these last few days. But of course, there are 30 of them, and every single one of them is different. And we cover every possible movement that you can think of. It's flexion, extension, and rolling, and, improving your flexibility of your hamstrings. There's a section in the last week, which is about how can you organize your body for stronger exercises without injuring yourself, so that you really learn how to use yourself in the most optimal way possible. Which is, we started that in 2020, I think, during COVID. I filmed it, didn't have much to do. And we have 4 of those. But we're doing the Feldenfit one. We're starting on November the 1st. And I'll put a link to that in the Facebook group for those who are interested in joining up. We've got 4 of those altogether, and you can buy all 4, you can buy one. And we also have 2 shorter courses, which are the 5-day workshops. So if you decide it's, too much to do the longer ones, then we've got these short ones. And then, of course, we always do this free stuff as well. So, I like to be able to offer something for everybody, really. And it's, it's such a pleasure, whether you decide to sign up to Feldenfit or not, it's just a pleasure that you can enjoy some of this work, because I think it's just so valuable for riders.
Definitely.
The principles work so well, and they work so well with Thomas's work that it's a very good mix and combination.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the Feldenkrais lessons, they speed up your process of learning to sit the trot and become coordinated and develop self-carriage and so on. Especially, since not everybody can take hours and hours of lunge lessons, every day. So you can
exactly.
be at home, and then it brings more awareness to your patterns, your habits, So, and once you're aware of what you're doing, you can maybe change it or experiment with alternatives and so.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And as some of you found even tonight in tonight's thing, you suddenly made a discovery about a particular habit or pattern that you've had for a long time, which has confounded you. And then you were like, oh, I can find a way to move now that I couldn't before. And I think that's what Feldenkrais lessons really offer. It's why I kind of trained in it, actually, because myself as being an athlete and a fitness instructor, and I knew how to work hard. I knew how to train my strength and my fitness, and yet I was getting injured all the time because I was sort of wasting efforts and working against myself. And the Feldenkrais just revolutionized my approach to all my sports, and really, really changed my performance for the better, which was pretty exciting in those days. I was a lot younger, so I was more competitive than I am now. But yeah, that's how we got into it.
Yeah.
There's a few questions about Feldenfit. Yeah.
Yes, Terry, will the 30-day Feldenkrais challenge have live Zoom like this? 3 days?
No, we don't do a live Zoom. It's pre-recorded, 30 days. We run it in the Feldenfit Facebook group, which is its own group. And I'm in there every day, a little bit like I was in the challenge. And we have a post under which people can write their experiences and discuss with each other and discuss with me how the lessons have gone. But no, we don't do we don't do lives in that one.
Yeah. Then let me see here. Jerry says, how long will these be on YouTube in regards classes? Are they available for live or only during class?
The classes are available for life. So if you buy Feldenfit 1, then you have it for life. How long these will be on YouTube? I think we normally keep them up for about, well, probably until Feldenfit starts, I imagine.
Yeah, exactly. Normally challenges stay up until the actual course starts.
Yeah.
And which is we take it down.
Yeah. Sometimes we forget for a couple of days and then you get them for longer, but they will come down at some point.
Yeah, and often we give the recordings as a bonus to the people who sign up for the course.
Indeed, and I will do that. I'll make sure that's included. Yeah.
Sandra says, will the lessons be only in English or in German?
No, well, so the Feldenfit 1 is, we have it in German with German subtitles, okay? So you'll see the German subtitles in the screen. The German part of it's got its own section. Everything has been translated. Because I can't speak German well enough to do that, I haven't dubbed it myself. So my colleague Kat does the voiceover. Oh, no, it's a voiceover, not subtitles.
Yeah, I thought
sorry, it's actually a voiceover. Yeah, so she talks you through it. So it's not me speaking terrible German. And we are translating all the Feldenfits. So far, we've done 1 and 4, and we're halfway through 2. And we will do the Feldenfit 2 challenge in the new year. And by that time, it'll be available in German. And then Kat and I will get on to Feldenfit 3 and translate that. So all the Feldenfits will have German voiceovers.
It's a lot of work. Yeah,
it's a lot of work. Yeah, I'm like,
it's a big project, but Kat is great that way.
She's fantastic.
She translates it, and then she does the recording.
Yeah,
and tries to time it just right so that she speaks when Catherine speaks. So what you're seeing Catherine demonstrate that matches the text.
It's amazing what she's done. Absolutely amazing.
She does a great job.
Yeah, she does.
Carol, looking forward to doing Feldenfit. Signed up a while ago, and it's interesting because when getting ready for What, Why, How 1, I found I was so impatient with Feldenkrais, and Catherine said this is normal and okay. Joined Feldenfit, but have not done so many since. But on this challenge, I find the impatience is gone. And so with my mind in a better frame, the results are very much more obvious.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
30-day challenge.
Yeah. Caro, it is unusual to slow yourself down and pay attention like that. And I think it's very, as I've said to you before in What, Why, How, it's very common to get frustrated and impatient and your mind is everywhere. It's like meditation. You have to train your meditation muscle and you have to train your Feldenkrais muscle. And it's not immediate for some people. I'm a kind of fast-paced, energetic person. And it was hard for me to lie down and be still for 5 minutes, let alone in my training, the lessons are an hour long. And I was like, oh God, it was torture, but I knew it was good for me. And it really was. So, I'm glad I stuck through it.
Yeah. Yeah, Gretchen says, very grateful to both of you for these sessions and for selflessly sharing your knowledge and experiences. Thank you. Many blessings from Puerto Rico. Hey, Puerto Rico.
Well, we enjoy it. And in fact, when my husband and I went over to Portugal to stay with Thomas and Shana, or see them, we had many a long lunch over which we talked for hours and hours. So it's effortless for us to do this.
Yeah, exactly. It's always fun.
Yeah.
Jane says also, it's lovely that you both get together and give us all this information. Thank you. Most grateful and lucky to have you. Oh, you're welcome. That's sweet. Jamie says, works so well for daily activities as well, moving better now than in my 30s, particularly getting pelvis misalignment straightened out and mobility back, which straightens the spine as well. Thanks, Catherine Thomas.
Yeah,
that's awesome. It really helps. I mean, it helps to keep your spine pain-free. You know, Shannon and I used to have a lot of back issues in the past, and with Feldenkrais, they kind of went away for the most part. It's rare now that our back hurts.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Claudia says voiceover. I think maybe you're explaining that I actually got it wrong. It is a voiceover, not subtitles. Thank you for the German people.
Yeah.
I don't know, Susan, if we're going to. Sometimes we do put these out for sale. I don't know yet, but what I can do is let you know if we do.
Karen Johnson, what's the difference between Feldenfit 1, 2, 3, and 4?
Okay, so I'll tell you that the difference is my state of mind, because I filmed Feldenfit 1 during COVID, and I was really I wanted to do some more active style, dynamic Feldenkrais sessions, because we couldn't really do very much. So Feldenfit 1 is faster and more dynamic, but it really goes into the foundations of the Feldenkrais work. By the time we get to 4, we're getting into all this really subtle kind of finding your deep core, finding this alignment. So it's quieter. It takes more attention. So in some ways it's more advanced, if that makes sense. Whereas 1 and 2 are more, bigger movements, which sometimes at the beginning people find easier because they're not so used to really bringing their attention to this internal sort of sensory feedback.
Yeah, Terry says, is this the only time I can sign up for the Feldenfit 1, or is it available all the time?
It's available all the time, but we only do 1 challenge a year for Feldenfit 1, or for each of them. Yeah. So that's when we run through the whole program together, which is fun to do, but it's not essential. Obviously there are people running through it in the background all the time. Yeah.
And Gretchen says, could you please repeat the Facebook page name again?
Do you mean the Feldenfit, Feldenfit? I can post in the group, Gretchen. I can post the link to the Feldenfit sales page. And if you sign up, then you'll be able to find Feldenfit. If it's Feldenkrais for Riders Challenge Group, Facebook, then it should be on your course platform. It should have a link to the Facebook group that you can join. I don't know if you've made it to the Facebook group that we've all been in. Yeah.
Yeah, and the Feldenfit Facebook group is only for members. So
yes,
if you
it's only
up,
for members.
you
Exactly. Yeah.
It's always a private group.
Yeah. Good.
Well,
just perfectly on time.
I know. I was just thinking that.
Yeah.
Terry says, thank you so much for your generous sharing of this, inspiring, deep, and grateful. I have to go.
Yeah, me too. Terry, thanks. And thanks for coming, showing up each night. And
thank you.
Yeah.
There's one more Q&A. Christine Ulzhofer says, bought already Feldenfit 1. Can I follow the challenge?
Yes, you can. We start November the 1st.
Yes.
Yeah.
Cool.
Good. Enjoy your rides, everybody, and see you in the Facebook group. Tag me if you've got any questions.